There is a fissure in the soul of modern man, a schism that Sigmund Freud, my mentor and ultimately my antagonist, tried to fill with the dark cellar of repressed instincts. But the psyche is not merely a cellar, it is a cosmos. When I turned inward, after our painful rupture, when I plunged into my own Nikia, my journey into the unconscious, I found the language of Western psychology to be insufficient. Our churches had lost the numinous, and our science had emptied the world of meaning. Western man was starved, trapped in a cage of causality. And it was in this wasteland that a voice, echoing across millennia, began to whisper, the voice of the East. This is not a video about what the East said. It is a video about what Jung heard. We in the West believe we can dominate nature, and by extension, our own inner nature, through will and reason. But this will, this hypertrophied ego, is precisely the source of our neurosis. The break with Freud was not just a theoretical disagreement. It was the collapse of my own world. I had to face what I called the confrontation with the unconscious. I had to dive into what the West fears most, the irrational, the chaotic, the abyss. I spoke to my own soul, and the answers it gave me looked nothing like Vienna. They looked like Calcutta, like Beijing, like Lhasa. The West offered me tools to dissect the ego, but it was the East that offered me a map to transcend it and, paradoxically, integrate it into a greater whole. Western man built his house on the thin crust of consciousness, ignoring the vast, ancient volcanic foundations beneath it. My work, therefore, became that of an archaeologist of the soul, and the most precious tools I found were not in our laboratories, but in their sacred texts. The journey we take today is not to the geographical East, but to the inner East, the place within the psyche where the sun rises. My first true guide on this journey was not a psychologist, but a sinologist, Richard Wilhelm. He brought me the I Ching, the book of changes. The West, obsessed with how and why, sees the I Ching as a mere oracle, a game of fortune-telling. Such myopia. Wilhelm showed me that the I Ching is not about predicting the future. It is about reading the quality of the present. It operates on a principle that I later struggled to name in our language, but which the ancient Chinese called the Tao. The Tao is not a force, it is a way. It is the unseen flow of totality, the river in which all things run, the underlying unity that precedes all duality. The West tries to force the river. The I Ching teaches how to listen to its current. In my foreword to Wilhelm's translation, I wrote that the Chinese mind does not seem obsessed, as ours is, with fixing an event causally. It concerns itself with the complex of events occurring in the same moment, the pattern. I discovered that what I was seeking, what I called the process of individuation, the path to becoming the undivided self, was, in essence, the conscious effort to align the ego with the Tao. The ego asks, what do I want? But the self asks, what does the Tao require of me now? The I Ching was a mirror. By casting the coins or yarrow stalks, the pattern that emerged mirrored the pattern of the psyche at that instant. It was not magic, it was the understanding that the inner and outer are a single field. This understanding changed everything. It gave me the first key to what the West had dismissed as chance. And this brings us to the heart of the mystery, synchronicity. The West is paralyzed by causality, the idea that everything is a tick-tock of cause and effect. If there is no cause, it is chance. But what is chance? It is merely the name we give to an order we do not understand. The East, especially in the Taoist view, sees reality not as a chain of events, but as a pattern, an embroidery where all threads are connected, not just by the thread that precedes them, but by the entire image they form together. Synchronicity is this. It is in a causal connecting principle. It is when the inner world, a dream, a thought, an activated archetype, and the outer world, an event, a person, an object echo one another, like two bells vibrating at the same frequency. It is not one event causing the other. It is the totality revealing itself in a single moment. That famous case of my patient, dreaming of a golden scarab, and at the instant she told me, an actual beetle, Acetonia aurata near perfect analog, tapped at my window. That was not chance. That was the Tao manifesting. It was the psyche and matter dancing to the same rhythm. The I Ching is the tool for reading this totality. Synchronicity was the proof I needed that the psyche is not in man. Man is in the psyche. Reality, I discovered, is psychoid. It is both matter and mind. The East had known this for millennia. We had simply forgotten. While the Tao gave me the image of the flow, Buddhism offered me the method for dissolution. The Tibetan Book of the Dead, the Bardo Thetl, introduced to me by Dr. Evans Wentz, is not, as the Westerner supposes, a text about death. It is a guide to psychological liberation. It describes the journey of consciousness after the body's death. But what I saw in it was a map of the journey of consciousness after the ego's death. What Buddhism calls nirvana, or the cessation of suffering through the extinction of identification with the ego, runs parallel to what I call individuation. The Westerner suffers because he identifies with his small I, his persona, his social mask. Buddhism teaches disidentification. It teaches us to observe the shadow, not to fight it, but to recognize it as Maya, as illusion, as not self. Individuation is not about inflating the ego. It is about transcending it by placing it in service of a greater totality. It is to die in life, as the Bardo Thetl teaches, so that the true self may emerge. The man who clings to his ego is haunted by the demons of the Bardo. The man who individuates recognizes them as projections of his own totality, as the wrathful archetypes of his own psyche. If you feel your own journey resonating with this search, with this difficult but necessary death of the ego, consider subscribing. We are only scratching the surface of the self, the true goal of the journey. And what is this self? For years, I struggled with the word self, si mesmo. It had to be something that encompassed both the conscious and the unconscious, the center and, simultaneously, the circumference of the psyche. And then, I delved into the Vedas and the Upanishads, and there it was, described with poetic clarity millennia ago. The Hindus call it Atman. The Atman is the divine spark, the individual soul, the silent observer within us. But, and this is the central revelation, the Upanishads declare, Tet Tvamasi, thou art that. The individual Atman is identical to Brahman, the soul of the cosmos, the totality of all that exists. It was a deafening echo. What I was discovering in my patience in Zurich, what I was seeing in my own dreams, was the same thing the rishis had contemplated in the forests of India. The self is not something we have. It is what we are. The ego is the wave. The self is the ocean. The journey of individuation is not to create a self, but to awaken to the self that was always there, the Atman Brahman that unites man with God, the finite with the infinite. The West, with its emphasis on the external Christ, had projected this totality outward. The East taught me to look for it within, as the God in us. If the self is the ocean, what is it made of? The West gave me Freud's personal unconscious, the repository of one life's forgotten memories and repressed desires. But my dreams, and the dreams of my patients, spoke an older language. We saw symbols that did not belong to our lives: the serpent, the wise old man, the great mother, the world tree. Where did they come from? The answer was again in the East. Hindu philosophy speaks of the Akasha, the ether, the primordial substance of space, which is, itself, a record of everything that has ever happened, been thought, or felt. A cosmic memory. This is what I called the collective unconscious. It is not a concept, it is an empirical experience. It is the psychic inheritance of humanity, the sediment of millions of years of human experience, deposited in the soul. The archetypes are the organs of this collective psyche. Buddhism and Hinduism did not see these gods and demons as external entities, but as facets of the mind itself, manifestations of the Akasha. The Akasha is the collective unconscious. The Devas and Asuras of the Vedas are the archetypes in their pure, numinous form, before our reason reduced them to mere ideas. How then does one navigate this ocean? How does one give form to this totality? Modern man is lost, fragmented. He needs a map, and once again, the East provided it. The mandala. In Tibet, in Tantric Hinduism, the mandala is not just art, it is psychotechnology. It is a diagram of the cosmos and, simultaneously, a diagram of the psyche. It is the palace of the self, the ordering center. When I began to draw my own mandalas, during my period of confrontation with the unconscious, I did not know what I was doing. I was merely obeying an inner impulse to order the chaos. I drew a circle every morning. Only later, upon seeing Eastern mandalas, did I understand the psyche, when it is in the process of integration, naturally produces this symbol of totality. The mandala is the womb where the fragmented ego is gestated and reborn as the self. It is the cure for the Western schism, a protective circle that allows the individual to confront the shadow and integrate the opposites, the animus and anima, heaven and earth. In my practice, I came to use the mandala as a therapeutic tool, asking patients to draw theirs, to see where they stood on their journey to the center, to the self. But why embark on this journey? The West offers us success, wealth, power, but the soul remains sick. Hinduism offers an answer in a single word, dharma. Dharma is not just law or religion. It is your correct purpose, your intrinsic truth, the necessity of your soul, your individual law. The Bhagavad Gita is a sublime dialogue on dharma. Krishna urges our unit to fight, not for glory, not for hatred of the enemy, but because it is his dharma as a warrior. To flee from one's dharma is the greatest sin, the greatest source of neurosis. Individuation is precisely this. It is the discovery and the fulfillment of one's personal dharma. It is the process of becoming who you were destined to be, not what society, your parents, or your wounded ego told you to be. To live against one's dharma is the source of all neurosis. Individuation, therefore, is not a psychological luxury. It is a spiritual necessity. It is the answer to the question the East has always asked, who am I? Let that question echo. What is your inner journey revealing about your purpose? What does your dharma demand of you? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your insight enriches this collective dialogue. However, I must issue a warning here. A warning I made throughout my life. The East offers immense wisdom, but also a mortal trap for the Westerner. The temptation to imitate. We see Westerners who become pseudo-gurus, who adopt lotus postures and chant mantras without understanding their depth, using Eastern spirituality as an opiate and escape from their own Western shadow. This is not individuation. It is ego inflation. It is a new spiritual persona. You cannot simply adopt the Atman. You cannot become a Buddhist merely by shaving your head and rejecting your past. Eastern wisdom cannot be a substitute for our own heritage. The Westerner must find his own path. He must confront alchemy, Gnosticism, the myths of his own land, the inner Christ. The East must be a mirror where we see our own soul reflected, not a costume to be worn. Individuation is finding the self, not importing a foreign one. We must digest the East, not be devoured by it. The goal is a synthesis, not a conversion. And so, we arrive at the opus, the great work. Analytical psychology is not an Eastern psychology, nor is it purely Western. It is the coniunctio oppositorum, the union of opposites. The West gave us extroversion, science, the focus on the ego, and the material world. The East gave us introversion, wisdom, the focus on the self and the inner cosmos. One is the yang, the other is the yin. Alone, they are incomplete and dangerous. The West, without the East, becomes a soulless machine, racing toward materialistic self-destructs. The East, without the West, can lose itself in a quietism without action, a dream that forgets the world. My work was to build the bridge. Synchronicity was the mortar that bound quantum physics and the Tao. The self was the meeting point where the inner Christ and the Atman recognized each other as brothers. We are not called to choose between the East and the West. We are called, as individuals, to be the crucible where the two are fused, creating the philosophical gold, conscious totality. The cure for the modern fissure is not to run to the East, but to stand still and integrate the North, the South, the East, and the West within us. If this exploration of totality has brought you value, if it has activated something in your own journey, press the like button. It is the gesture that signals the message has found resonance.